Well, folks, it is back. Earnings season is here. Stock market chaos is about to start once again. We're going to speak about this. We're going to talk about what companies I'm watching over the next few days, what companies are going to be reporting, my expectations, those sorts of things, what you should be paying attention to in the market and all that good stuff. Appreciate y'all joining me. Thanks so much for being here. Obviously, first and foremost, we got to speak about the assassination attempt yesterday, right? That was a huge market moving event. If that bullet did connect, let me be very clear, it was a massive market mover. Since the bullet did not, was a little off. Since that happened, essentially, this will be basically a non-event for the market. But let me be very crystal clear. If there was a connection there yesterday, that would have changed the market massively. Like if Trump passed away, I'm just telling you, that would have been a massive market shaker that would have completely thrown into like what's going to happen with the election, what's going to happen with policy moving forward. It would have changed a lot of things, okay? Now, that is the 9th president in history to be shot at. The 9th president to be shot at. I'm not the best in math, so maybe some of my math whiz can help me out. In the comments section, let me know what the percent probability is that if you become president, you're going to be shot at. Because we've had 46 presidents, 9 of them have been shot at. Not all of them connected and not all of them passed away, but 9 have been shot at over time. Did a little study on that. Now, my big question, and maybe some of you guys can answer this. I asked this question yesterday. I said, while everybody's talking about all this, I'm over here trying to put the pieces together and try to figure out how the guy missed 3 shots. Sounds like he was about 130 to 150 out, and we're talking yards, right? Not super close, but also not super far. Definitely in range for somebody with a good shot. I looked up the weather today in Butler, Pennsylvania, and there was light wind to no wind on that particular day. It looked to be blowing like 1 to 2 miles an hour much of the day. So basically no wind. So pretty much perfect weather to pull something like this. Sounds like he had a clear line of sight. From the video, sounds like he got off 3 clean shots and then panic fired after that. I know we have a lot of military members in the group, but I doubt any are in this channel. Would love to know how easy or hard it is to pretty much hit a stationary target from that range with basically no wind. I'm fairly certain a well-trained sniper that would have been light work, right? And, definitely had some good folks kind of add in their perspectives and whatnot in regards to that. And, some people were trying to make a case that, Trump's head turned a little bit. And so, that made the difference. And maybe it did. It's not a very good shooting. If you don't know, there's snipers that can ride around on a helicopter and can hit moving targets while the helicopter's moving around from 200 out. Okay, so there's definitely levels to this game. So I think everybody should be fortunate that guy, wasn't the best out there. Let's put it that way, right? Now, something else that's shocking a lot of people, or surprising a lot of people, is big tech CEOs. Tim Cook came out very shortly after with a statement in regards to the matter, and Satya Nadella, Zuckerberg, Musk, Bezos, all these big dogs, right, coming out and really, saying nice things and trying to really be supportive of kind of Trump in this situation, right? Now, Musk should not come as a surprise to anybody, but I think for some of these other folks coming out and doing what they did and kind of making the statements they made, a lot of people got like kind of shocked by the situation. I'm not shocked at all. I told you guys months ago, big tech wants Trump in office. There's no question. All these big CEOs, all these billionaires, they all want Trump in this election. And the reason being is Biden's talked up specifically, and this doesn't get any publicity, and 99% of the population has no clue what's going on behind the scenes. Biden wants to raise corporate taxes to 28% in his second term from 21%. That takes 7 full percentage points of your net income away from you as a company and gives it to the government, right? If you were a CEO of a company, you don't want to give another 7 percentage points of your actual what's left at the end of the day to the government. You would much rather keep that for your own company, build your balance sheet stronger, add more employees, do share buybacks, pay out dividends, things like that, then say, okay, here government, here's another 7 percentage points. So to me, I was not surprised at all. I think all these guys secretly want Trump. All of them. All of them. And I think they're honestly pushing, social opinions and all that to the side for this particular election. So, I called that months ago, and sure enough is exactly what happened, right? Now, also another situation here, people are, even Trump said, I want to thank the United States Secret Service. And I'm like, for what? You got lucky you're not dead. They didn't do a thing. That was horrible. Like, this is embarrassing. This is one of the most embarrassing things. You would think like something like this couldn't even happen. Dude gets that close with a rifle, and there was people there pointing out. I'm like, this is embarrassing, man. Embarrassing. Did you guys see some of the videos of how panicked and frantic these folks were in the Secret Service? It's embarrassing. And I'm like, what? Like literally, it's lucky that guy was not much better with an AR. That's all I'm going to say about that. Or Trump would not be here today. So thinking like the Secret Service did a good job yesterday, no. That was an embarrassment. And I went down the rabbit hole, and I tried to look up kind of like who's the big dog in charge of that, right? I found this interview on YouTube, and, you go a few minutes into that, and they talk about, they want 30% of female recruits by 2030, and it just sounds like, I don't know, man. Like what are they doing? What are, are we focused on trying to protect these people, or are we focused on trying to hit these quotas and things like that? Like I don't know what they're doing, but it was an embarrassment yesterday. Okay, and I don't know if anybody should be thanked for what happened yesterday, right? Now, I think it is important to understand what happened yesterday. That can happen at any moment in the market, and as an investor, you got to be prepared for that. It's just a sleepy day yesterday. I was at, kind of an end-of-year banquet for my kids yesterday. I was there for like 4 hours, and then we went swimming after that. It was just kind of a chill, like sleepy day, right, with the family. And yet, all of a sudden, almost a completely market-changing event happens, right, when you're least expecting it. Like, I was least expecting something crazy to happen yesterday on a random Saturday afternoon. Like, that's crazy, right? But just in the past few years, we've had several black swan events in the market that, shook up the market, at least in the short term, right? None of these things ever last, by the way. But they do shake up the market huge in the short term, right? Trump winning, by the way, in 2016, that was kind of a black swan event. No one had expected that. Everybody thought Clinton was easy money, right? And then Trump won, and all of a sudden, everybody was surprised. I think Trump was even surprised he won, right? And all of a sudden, it was like, wait, okay, well, what's this mean for policy? Like that was, for the market, that was actually a big adjustment period on what was going to transpire there. Rona, obviously, was a huge black swan event. No one expected all of a sudden this thing to come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're shutting down the world. Like, no one had ever experienced that before, ever in history, or at least not in history, but at least it was on this planet right now. No one had experienced that before, where it was like, well, yeah, we're shutting down the global economy. Like, what? Obviously, Russia-Ukraine took a lot of people by a huge surprise. That was a black swan event for the market. And then certainly if Trump had been taken out yesterday, that was a black swan event, right? Absolutely crazy. So you always got to be prepared for those in the market. And you never know when they're going to come. You never know. Just like yesterday afternoon, no one would have had any clue that would have happened. And boom, crazy, crazy, crazy. So always be mentally prepared for things like that, because they do happen sometimes, okay? Now, before we get into earnings, there's another big piece of news that I saw out here, and I thought this was big, and so I got to cover this for you guys. Google's reportedly in advanced talks to acquire this cybersecurity startup, Wiz, for $23 billion, its largest deal ever. Google's in advanced talks to acquire cybersecurity firm Wiz for $23 billion, the Wall Street Journal reported. The people familiar with the journal told the deal could come soon. Wiz was founded in 2020, not that long ago, and has grown at a rapid clip under CEO. It has been eyeing an IPO as recent as May, where the company achieved a valuation of $12 billion. So if Google's to buy them out for $23 billion, obviously it's substantially above where the company's been valued at recently, right? Wiz's cloud security offering gives executives and cybersecurity professionals insight into the company's full cloud presence, something appealing to large firms with significant computing resources. It is backed by a roster of blue-chip firms, including Israeli VC firm CyberStarts, Index Ventures, Insight Partners, and Sequoia Capital. If completed, the deal would be Google's largest acquisition ever. And this is huge, right? Because this is one of those deals that you look at, and we haven't really seen any massive deals here recently. And the reason being is, certainly the folks that are in charge are not really letting any big deals go through here recently. So this could be something that ends up going through. Now, why is Google doing this? You got to ask yourself, why are they doing this, right? Well, my personal opinion is Google's stock has a problem. and they need to do something to get this stock momentum again, right? And remember, when it comes to stock price, it's very important you keep a stock price and you're going in the right direction. There's so many reasons for this, but people only think, oh, that's just greedy, they just want their stock to go up. No, it goes further than that. If your stock underperforms, pressure starts to mount from the shareholders, and the shareholders then vote out board of directors members, okay, or vote in new board of directors members. So as a board of directors member, it's then your job to basically kind of set up who you want to be the CEO of the company, right? And so if you're the board of directors and you're getting pressure, you got to start following that pressure to the CEO. Hey, shareholders aren't happy, the stock's not doing well, right? Then your employee base isn't happy as well. If remember, a lot of these tech companies especially, they give their employee bases a ton of stock. Well, if your stock's significantly underperforming all these other big tech stocks, guess what? Your employees start to become very disgruntled. They start to become not very motivated, and they start to want to go to other big tech companies, okay? This is something very important to understand. And so these companies have to keep their stocks moving in a good direction, right? Showing you on 1000X here, if we compare Google versus, what's always been kind of their biggest peer, which is Apple, right? Meta is also another big peer of Google. But, Google and Apple go back a long time in terms of, those companies being viewed as peers, right? Android, iOS, we know the whole game, right? Forward P on Google, 25. Forward P, Apple, 33. 2-year forward P, under 20 for Google, 30 for Apple. If you look at trailing 12-month earnings per share growth, Google's smoking Apple. Current year expected earnings per share growth, Google's smoking Apple. Next year earnings per share growth, Google smoking Apple. Same exact thing with revenue metrics. Gross margins better for Google than Apple. Net margins better for Google than Apple. And yet, it trades at a far lower multiple than Apple. That means the stock is not getting any respect, which means there's something in the story. It's not numbers related, it's the story related that's got to get investors excited. And there's clearly nothing there with Google right now that's making investors excited about Google stock. And that's why it's trading at far lower multiples than somebody like an Apple, and even though Google has way better growth rates and way better margins, right? So Google they have to do something. If we go back to 2016, Apple and Google were right there. They were neck and neck, going back and forth, right? And you look at this, look at the second quarter of 2016. Apple was the biggest market cap, over 500 billion. Google was not far behind, right? And look at this, third quarter, fourth quarter, and now Google's dropped significantly. Look at Google's market cap compared to Apple. It's not even remotely close, 2.2 billion versus 3.5 billion for Apple, right? And keep in mind, if all of a sudden Google doesn't have that good of an earnings and Amazon comes through with a banger, next thing you know, Amazon's going to jump Google, and Google's going to move to the 5th biggest market cap. This can't happen. So if you're Google, you got to do something, and I understand the play. You got to get momentum. Okay, you buy out some super fast growth cybersecurity company. You maybe break out those numbers once you make that acquisition, and then you show everybody, hey, we got this new great growth engine. Look at this over here, our new shiny object. So Google's also loaded with cash. And what are they doing with that cash? Not much. You might as well make an acquisition like this. So, yeah, I'm not surprised. Now, can they get it through the government? That's going to be the next big question. I don't know. I mean, if they announce this acquisition, let's say this month or next month, maybe they could get a new administration in office by the time the deal is kind of getting finalized in regards to the government looking over the deal. So I don't know. They might be able to get it through. So that's a huge deal for the market, okay? Now, in terms of earnings this week, in terms of kind of what I'm looking at here this week, you got to pay attention to Goldman Sachs. The stock's at all-time highs. A report Monday morning. I think it's a very important company to kind of listen to the conference call, hear what the CEO and the executives are talking about in relation to how they view the economy, how they view the financial world. Goldman Sachs is still really the epicenter of Wall Street at the end of the day, right? So I think that's an important one to pay attention to. On Tuesday, you got Bank of America, one of the biggest banks out there, reporting. I think they're always important to pay attention to, right? You have United Health reporting, and United Health is the biggest stock in the Dow. It's the heaviest weight in the Dow. So if United Health comes out, reports great numbers, right? Everybody loves the stock goes up, the Dow's going to go up. And next thing you know, you're going to see this Dow well over 40,000. If things go the other way, it's going to actually bring down the entire Dow. So that's something to kind of keep in mind there. We have Progressive reporting. So Progressive, it's interesting because what I'm hearing, so if you don't know, I'm sure you all know, okay, insurance rates have gone insane, especially auto insurance, right? Everybody's being hit by these massive moves up in regards to auto insurance, right? I mean, like, a lot of people are seeing like 20% rises in regards to auto insurance on a year-over-year basis. It's insane. And that's even if you've been the safest driver, you haven't gotten any tickets, you haven't gotten any accidents, anything like that. You're still seeing a ridiculous rise in your auto insurance. But from what I'm hearing, Progressive might be stealing market share right now. They might be undercutting the comp, and then they might be waiting until next year to go up. I don't know. That's just rumors, what I'm hearing, okay? So keep that in mind. They might be potentially stealing market share, and it'll be interesting to see how the market takes that, if that's accurate, right? Charles Schwab, that's a play that's been, oh my gosh, like people got so paranoid about that one back in 22 and 23 about them potentially actually going under, which is crazy to think Charles Schwab, like what? But that's going to be one just to kind of keep an eye on, see what happens there. JB Hunt's reporting Tuesday. I mean, who covers JB Hunt stock? I think it's an important stock to pay attention to and what they have to say, their guidance. And the reason being is a huge transportation company. And so little companies like that, if you want to know how the economy is actually doing, pay attention to companies like that. They're going to give you a lot of detail. JB Hunt, obviously United States, right? They're going to give you a lot of detail on what's actually going on in the economy, what's their guidance like, right? How are they feeling about the economy for the upcoming quarter? I think it matters, guys. I think those sorts of companies matter a lot to pay attention to. Wednesday before the bell, you have Johnson & Johnson reporting, which that stock's been horrible performer over the past 5 years. Like Johnson & Johnson's had one of the worst 5-year performances I've ever seen for Johnson & Johnson. So that's one to keep an eye on. Ally Bank's another one to keep an eye on. Ally could be stealing a lot of market share right now. Basically, what you have happening in the banking space is pretty much all the big banks, the JP Morgans, the Wells Fargo's, Bank of America's, all these big dog money center banks. What they're doing is they're collecting massive deposits from folks because a lot of people have their checking accounts through a Chase, a Wells Fargo, Bank of America. And then what are they offering in regards to savings accounts? Pretty much a whole lot of nothing. The savings accounts rates these big banks are giving are a joke, a complete joke. But then you look at somebody like an Ally. And with Ally, you can actually make some money with a savings account with Ally. Ally is giving out, if I recall, it's around somewhere around a 4.4% rate or somewhere around there roughly, right? Ballpark. Well, if you compare that to these other big banks that are giving virtually nothing, and then you could get Ally to give you 4.4%, let's say you got $100,000 on the sideline, who are you putting that $100,000 with? You're going to keep it in a savings account at JP Morgan or Wells Fargo or Citibank, or are you going to move that money to somebody like an Ally? So all of a sudden now Ally has another $100,000 of assets under management, right? So AUM there. So that's something to kind of keep in mind in regards to this whole situation. That'll be an interesting one to pay attention to. United, I mean, all the airlines are doing so bad right now. And it's just crazy because as far as the amount of people flying around, it's never been better. But in terms of the revenue of these companies, it's really never been better. But in terms of the profits, they're getting destroyed right now. So I don't know what to expect with United, but that's going to be crazy. I think Discover's arguably the most important stock. I'll call it the second or third most important stock this week reporting. And the reason being is Discover's a great one to keep in mind in regards to delinquencies. What are these past quarter numbers as far as delinquencies go? What are they feeling for the future quarter? Are delinquencies going to get worse? If you look at a 10-year, right, over the past 10 years, credit card delinquencies are at the highest they've been in 10 years, right? And so keep in mind, this is backwards looking. This is looking back at the first quarter. We'll get the new second quarter data out, I think, within the next few weeks here. And don't be surprised at all if those credit card delinquencies continue to rise throughout the remainder of this year. I think the biggest question is, where do they stop at, right? And if you look, here's a scary thing. We're not even close. We're not even close to where we are at in the great financial crisis, right? And so, we got the worst numbers we've had in a decade when it comes to credit card delinquencies, but we're still not even remotely close to the great financial crisis. Like, we have a long way to go to get a lot worse if things are going to get a lot worse, right? So things could get really ugly, and I think Discover's a great one to pay attention to. Like I said, in regards to the economy, in regards to how the consumer's actually doing, pay attention to Discover numbers. Everybody watching this right now. I know, most of us don't care about ever owning Discover stock. I don't ever care about owning Discover stock. But a company like that, if you want to know what's going on in reality, don't always think about just the government numbers. Pay attention to what a company like Discover is telling you about the consumer and what's going on actually in reality out there, okay? Now, Thursday's huge. Before the bell, you got TSMC, the biggest semiconductor manufacturer out there, right? They are the big dog. They are the one that is benefiting huge from obviously the AI boom and NVIDIA's chips and everything like that. TSMC, you got to pay attention to them, what they have to say about guidance moving forward. You're going to have to hear what they have to say about smartphones. The smartphone market's been not a good place for the past year or so. Are they expecting things to get better there? Really important to pay attention to, especially if you own somebody like an Apple stock, for instance, right? Domino's Pizza. I'd pay attention to Domino's Pizza. And the reason being, Domino's is one of the most hidden stocks in the market. Domino's has been a tremendous performer. If you pull up a 10-year chart, a 15-year chart, a 20-year chart of Domino's Pizza, the stock's done, like literally it's one of the best stocks you could have probably bought over the past 10, 15, 20 years, right? But it's really fascinating in regards to Domino's because no one ever talks about that stock. And I was thinking recently, I was talking to the private group about like, what are the companies that are in the food space that can do $500 million plus a year in net income? And there's only really like 6 companies out there that I really can think of, right? McDonald's, Starbucks, Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, Yum Brands, right, which owns Taco Bell. I think they still own KFC and Pizza Hut as well, right? And then you have Domino's. And so Domino's, a lot of times doesn't get put into the same sentence with these sorts of companies, in these sorts of fast food giants and like super successful companies, but Domino's is actually one of those companies, right? So that's going to be really, really interesting to see kind of where their numbers at and what they have to say. Netflix is the first big tech to report. Obviously, tremendous stock over the past 10, 20, since IPO. I mean, it's always been a great stock, right? Specifically, that stock bottomed around 2 years ago. It was bottomed in the summer of 2022 at $100-something. I even bought some Netflix stock at that particular time, right? And I never bought Netflix stock. I never thought I would get an opportunity. I actually bought Netflix shares, made a bunch of money on it, ended up selling out of my shares, right? But Netflix is a great company to just kind of like buy and hold for the long term, by the way, as well, right? If you want to really hold a big position. My position was kind of smaller, so it was kind of like, I'm good. I made a big profit on it, and I sold out of it. But Netflix, tremendous company, first big tech to report. It sets the tone for big tech for the rest of the earnings season. So then when we get the Metas, the Googles, Apples, Microsoft, all those companies, it kind of like sets the tone on where we're going there, right? PPG, another company, no one ever talks about these sorts of companies. Another one that's very important to pay attention to if you want to know what's going on in the real world out there, right? There's a paint company. They sell sealants. They sell all types of coating-related products. And so this is another one that if you want to hear what's actually going on out there, is the housing market starting to get a little hit? Like could construction slow down? These sorts of questions, pay attention to guidance. Pay attention to how confident or not confident the management team is. Really important, okay? Very secret stocks. American Express reports Friday. Now, American Express is important because Discover's seen as like, Discover's more viewed as like, everybody could use Discover, right? Discover could have wealthy clients using their credit card products. Discover could have people in the middle class using their credit card products. Discover could have people under the middle class using their credit card products. American Express is seen as very different. American Express is more seen as like the top 30% of income earners use American Express, right? That's kind of what the view is. Maybe a little higher credit scores, more credit history, those sorts of things when it comes to Amex, right? And so when it comes to Amex, what happens there, right? Are we seeing any sort of weakness in regards to the higher end consumer? Because that's been the one space that's held up very well. If that consumer starts to drift a bit, then we're in some bigger trouble because we've already lost under the middle class, and we've already kind of lost the middle class at this time in regards to a lot of spending on stuff, right? If we lose the higher end consumer as well, that's no bueno, right? No bueno in regards to that situation. Now, for me personally, my game, as far as all my big stocks and whatnot, they're all going to be reporting next week and then the following 2 to 3 weeks after that. So in regards to my big stocks, that's really going to be next week at this time. We'll be talking about what my expectations are for the Metas and the Teslas and the Elfs and Amazon, PayPal, Palantir, all those sorts of companies. That will be, next couple weeks we'll talk about that. But for this week, this is our starter week to kind of get everybody rolling, get everybody, in the game, and it's going to be very interesting. Now, I want to draw your guys' attention to 2 specific videos I produced out of my last 6 videos. This one right here, 4 famous stocks crashing, how bad it could get. The views did not do well in that video, right? And some of those stocks are a little more niche, like Chipotle, Lululemon, I'm talking about Celsius, even Nike is still a little bit more of a niche stock. That's a really important video. That's one of my favorite videos I've produced recently. And so I understand like it didn't get the most views, 33,000, but that's a video you want to check out, okay? And then this video, this is probably my favorite video I've produced, I would say in quite a while. We're in a stock market crash, you just don't know it yet. Honestly, I don't remember a video I produced recently that I enjoyed more than producing that specific video. I think that's a really good video that you guys are going to really enjoy. I think I watched that video back personally 2 or 3 times, which I rarely watch my videos back even once, never mind 2 or 3 times, because I already know what I said, but I enjoyed it that much, and I'm like, I want to watch this dude talk again, and it's just me, okay? So definitely, if you did not watch either of those videos, go to my channel here, watch those, trust me, you'll be happy you did, okay? All right, guys, much love as always, appreciate you joining me, busy next few weeks ahead. I hope you guys are ready to rock and roll. Appreciate you all being here, appreciate you being subscribed, and have a great day.